Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. We have very distinguished person with us today. His name is Naveen Athresh, and then he is, you can say, serial entrepreneur. He has done many things. I'll let him talk about it because I might not give justice. But long story short, he has been with several startups and he has startups of his own. And we welcome him. Now he is a AI pioneer. So he has featured in many business journals all over the world. He has done TED Talks. So let's introduce Naveen. Welcome, Naveen.
Raj, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here on your podcast. Um, it's some really heavy loaded words that you have said in. Let me try to. I don't think I'm deserving of many of those, but to be honest, we try and give our best. So, to summarize, I have about 26 years in product building and building startups. The last decade of my career has been spent pretty much working across many first Indian startups in various upcoming fields. For example, I spent stints at Flipkart working directly with the co-founders there and running the consumer shopping experience, cart checkout, auto management system, returns, reverse logistics. Then I worked with eBay Global, basically figuring how eBay makes money, which is in their billing and pricing and promotions team. This was before eBay and PayPal split. And then I worked and set up the data product team at Rakuten, which is spanning across multiple aspects, multiple cities in the globe, Tokyo, India, Seattle, San Mateo, and so on. Basically, that built the foundation of artificial intelligence and put the gist of that learning in me. I went on to build and scale the SMB product platforms team at PayU, the largest, arguably, payment acceptance company here in India, competing with the likes of Razorpay. It is much like what Stripe is to the US. And also working on partnerships, etc. And then I was in Singapore working with Matchmove, a card issuance platform, and also getting our hands dirty with remittances cross-border, especially from Singapore outward and other countries back into Singapore, both sides, and offering capabilities in my stints both at PayU and Stripe. All along this last decade, it's been predominantly, for the most part, focused on AI, machine learning, and of course, that brings me to my current stint at Liquidmind here, where we automate workflows for international trade using AI. And I also run skill agents where we upskill individuals all the way till mid-market professionals in this very fast changing world in AI. My first decade was more around a lot more stable, I should say. I spent 9 long years with an American Cupertino, California startup called iDrive. Basically built that company from scratch as employee one in the Bangalore unit back in 2001 when the word startup was not too common here in India. They were one of the first software as a service companies in cloud software services, competing with the likes of Box, Iron Mountains Connected, and so on in those days. And iDrive and iBackup ended up doing very well. We built it from nothing to the 0 to 1, quite literally a success story, thankfully, B2C, and partially B2B later on as we pivoted to. But we've retained the B2C flavor. It's still available on iDrive.com and its sister services, basically offering online backup, sync, and collaboration services. I'm a graduate of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade Masters in International Business and University of Visvesvaraya College of Engineering graduate, which is recently, about 3 years ago, become a deemed university on the lines of IITs. So that's a brief about me, who I am, what I do, etc.
That's a very interesting journey you had. I mean, you have a very good educational background. Of course, IFT helped you into becoming, I would say, an entrepreneur. But why you want to be an entrepreneur? What is that you want to change in our business world?
See, the word entrepreneurship is a very loaded word, and I like to think of it more from first principles on what are the pain points that plague. You take very large problems, industry problems, user pain points that you see and perhaps experience yourself, and then you feel like it's high time it comes for a change. I'll give you an example. In the current startup, which is Liquidmind, what led me to even incorporating Liquidmind 2 years ago and taking that bold step from Vice President Products as Head of Products at Matchmove Singapore, doing very well for myself. There was no need to basically bring in any major change. I took this journey simply because, or rather I set out on this journey because I saw that the world of international trade in the last many centuries, forget about decades, has not changed much. It's still driven largely by very cumbersome documentation processes, archaic processes, a lot of interaction in broken systems. And $30 trillion of the world economy runs on international business and trade. And imagine that is pretty old school. There isn't any such a single platform that unifies it across the world, which basically brings all countries onto the same page and says, here's how you do trade. Of course, we are all now privy to the word trade simply because of all of the tariff aspects, etc., that's been ongoing from a geopolitical perspective, and we'd like to stay away from that in this discussion. But suffice to say, international business is ripe for disruption. And I truly believe that given the strengths of AI lie in basically solving for workflow automation through AI agents and agentic AI, which we'll get to, I'm sure, in a bit, it's basically going to definitely add value in addition to defrictioning how countries and exporters, manufacturing exporters, traders, and importers as well can benefit from something like this. And there have been attempts, I'm not saying there haven't been, but it's been very country specific. There are governing organizations, but it's pretty much shaken the world order, as you can see and hear in the news as well. So that's right. That's one example, Liquidmind. I can give you umpteen other examples from my past 26 years, but that's kind of, you take a large industry problem in any startup that you feel that you very passionately about. You want to be able to invest your time and effort in completely looking at it from first principles, solving for it through great teams that you can assemble, great technologies that you can put to solving the job to be done. Basically take a customer pain point and working backwards, scaling it. And it should be large enough that can basically, from a total opportunity standpoint, as we call it in our startup world, TAM, SAM, it should be that addressable market should be large enough. There should be room for monetization and the ability to also sustain and grow the business at scale. And obviously it's B2B, especially in our current endeavor. And we understand that's one. But I'd like to give you one more example, skill agents. Why did we chance upon skill agents? Skill agents is basically offering AI capability training, equipping people with hands-on behavior in mid-market professionals, HR, somebody in sales marketing, mid-market. They're damn worried. Oh my goodness, I read about this AI day in, day out. I'm very scared that this thing's going to come and usurp my job. People say it's co-pilots. There's news of layoffs all over the world in various industries. So what does it mean for me? There's a common complaint I hear time and again. So that again began from a customer pain point and working backwards. Entry-level professionals as well started saying, I'm doing a degree in computer science, am I employable? Somebody else comes and says, I'm upskilling myself, but I don't know in which areas of AI I should be upskilling. We offer those hands-on capabilities to say, let's make AI humane. Let's build those capabilities and leverage tools, technologies to sort of work with these large language models that we've all come to. It's become, literally a dining room conversation for us with GPT that was launched from OpenAI back in November 22. So that's kind of the arc, if you will. So you again take a very large D2C in this case. It's a business to consumer problem. It's not just training, but it's hands-on capabilities and mentoring them and making sure that we're upskilling them, hence the name Skill Agents AI. Hope this helps. I can give you other examples, but I'd probably stop at these two to take large industry problems, make sure that you create impact and be there for the long term, sustain through the journey.
You saw an opportunity to improve the way the business conducts itself. So, and then you took that opportunity and then become an entrepreneur. That's a very good way to look at it, because most people, what they will do is, oh, I have to live with this problem. Okay, this is how it works, right? That's what they say. Hey, this is how it works. It's been working like that for 30 years or 20 years, whatever it is. Leave it alone, right? But then you took one step and said, why you should be working this way? Why can't we change? Why can't we leverage AI and so on and so forth, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it. You had to question first principles. You had to question status quo. This adage, winners don't do different things. They do things differently. Or the reasonable man adapts himself, or man or woman adapts themselves to the world. And the unreasonable man adapts, or woman adapts the world to themselves. That's very true. Because, I've seen time and again that when you take these large problems, it's you have to be a little bit of a maverick to be able to go in and disrupt, because everybody's okay with status quo. You first of all have to make them feel like there is this huge unmet need, latent need, something they're not able to see, and sort of show it to them, and then show the art of what's possible, and then build and very, very quickly solve for that pain point in a very meaningful, tangible way that they realize the impact, and then they say, oh wow, this is something I need. And that's really how we have looked at it. Sometimes you have to get inventive. I truly believe that.
So, like most of us, right, we heard about AI only after ChatGPT came out, right, which was end of 2022. And right. But you've been working in AI for almost a decade plus, right? How did this happen? Like, how did you know about it when most of the world, 90% of the world, didn't know about AI, and then only ChatGPT said, okay, now everybody's talking about AI. AI is like loose term being used now all over, right, by everybody.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have to look at it in two stages. One is the field of AI and machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, etc. isn't new. It's been around in the United States, for example, for over many decades. A lot of papers have been written. It was restricted to not just even research realm. For example, if you were to take a step back and look at 2016, when Google acquired this company called DeepMind, and basically the AlphaGo system of Google DeepMind was trained well enough to be able to solve and actually defeat the largest and the best, the most toughest, arguably, game in the world, board game in the world, Go. It's a Chinese, Japanese, depending on who you speak to, 2,500-year-old game, where this Google DeepMind AlphaGo system basically beat the human at their own game, learning from various moves, millions of permutations, combinations, and being able to solve for it. So this is 2016, and I can go back well into time to tell you about many decades ago as well. But coming back to me and my journey in the last decade, it got spurred somewhere around, I think, in the personalization aspects in Flipkart, or Amazon, our competitor back then in India, we just entered in 2014. They had this algorithm for collaborative filtering for recommendations. So it's very known. Amazon US product playbook pretty much played out even in the India context in the form of their acquisition of Jungly and later sort of modeling it as Amazon India. And Flipkart was even though we had just managed to raise our first $1 billion funding, working directly with the founders, we discovered that you have to be able to provide very good contextual responses to user search queries. So, conversions happen better. Recommendations on bundling, if you will, product bundling is offered better. Then after that stint, I went on to eBay. Then I did Liquidmind 1.0, which was working with a lot of startups, tech startups again, in the mixed reality space and in fast fashion. One of those startups, I was privileged enough to represent them in New York TechCrunch Disrupt in 2017. Therein began my journey with AI in the truest sense, because we had pain points that were real. For example, you had to merge match influencers to customers from a mobile form factor in real time on the occasion-based purchases for apparel and fast fashion wear that they use for various occasions, women, men, children, mostly women, men. And women and the mothers shopping for the very tiny babies, and then of course children when they are old enough to be able to shop for themselves. And those merge match algorithms are again driven largely by AI and algorithmic approaches, where the system learns over time and becomes better. So this continuous, if you will, human feedback loop. And then what happens if the influencer isn't available? How do you actually get that a customer connected to some bot or a real-time entity? We speak a lot of bots these days in the AI world. Trust me, all of us have used bank websites and many of these bots, and many of them, at least here in India, I can tell you they suck even today. So they don't do the job as well as what we'd expect them to. And thereon, I was privileged enough post that first stint at Liquidmind at Rakuten, data science and data platform group, where I was given the very unique opportunity to work directly with the chief data officer at Takuyat Kitagawa-san, who was just forming the global data science group in India. And I was asked to lead the product arm for the Bangalore group for the data platform group, like I said earlier. And we got this opportunity to create a competitive intelligence as a service for the Rakuten Ichiba marketplace, which is like Amazon for US. By the way, Rakuten and also the Rakuten Ebates platform, Rakuten acquired Ebates in America. 7% of US holiday traffic used to go through Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales used to go through Ebates in those days. So that is now rebranded as Rakuten Rewards. But we built AI capabilities through our competitive intelligence homegrown platform. We didn't have the advantages that today, for example, every day you see new LLMs, SLMs, and tools, technologies being launched in our world. But back then it was very still, you had to build classification algorithms, you had to build named entity recognition parameters, you had to build for various categories in e-commerce, Ichiba marketplaces like Flipkart in India or Amazon in US, like I said. Ebates, of course, offers you rebates, electronic rebates, that's the full form. So basically, long story short is that's what if you will, the trigger, that was a trigger. And of course, Rakuten gave me an in-depth experience there. And thereon, I carried forward that to my stints in PayU and again in Matchmove, and now, of course, here in Liquidmind, and Skillsagent, where we deal with this day in, day out. So that's kind of the gist of my decade-long journey in AI. I could not be more fortunate. I couldn't consider myself more fortunate that we are at this very unique time in history. It's like steam engine. It's like the assembly line. It's like industrial revolution, information and communication technology in the 70s, and when silicon chips and everything was coming to fore. Silicon Valley was born there in the US, and now here we are with AI, and it's that disruptive. This isn't just like your .com or even smartphone. This is, perhaps, in my opinion, personal judgment, it's probably even bigger. It's a paradigm shift.
I think AI and quantum computer is next to hot topics. But coming to your background, right? You are CEO of Liquidmind.ai. We'll come to Skill Agent next, but let's just stick with Liquidmind AI. what problem are you trying to solve? Like you have trade documentation and all that, right? Yes, when you trade, you're supposed to receive material specification and few other items, any country specific information, all that needs to be carried. So tell us more about your documentation and workflow. What are you trying to solve here with Mind AI?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So, Liquid Mind's problem statement is very simple. We automate workflows for international business and trade through AI. Now, how you do it is obviously that's the problem statement sort of oversimplifies the problems on hand. Like I said earlier, it's a $30 trillion, multi-thousand data fields that are exchanged, documents, myriad. On an average, every export consignment has about 10 to 12 documents that need to go through, like letter of credit, bill of lading, insurance certificates, Incoterms that are, and then the required certificates for that. Then there is a purchase order, so many. I can go on and on. Now, all of these documents require a lot of vetting simply because of the moot fact. And I'll simplify this for you again. Buyers don't trust sellers, sellers don't trust buyers. And more so when this is a multi-country problem. Let's take this example of the sample. And by the way, we deal with large Indian exporters and medium Indian exporters and traders. We perhaps down the line will probably also move down to the small and medium sector as well. That's pretty massive. India's trade goals, and we have begun with India, but this problem can pretty much be replicated. The solution can pretty much be replicated, and the problem exists worldwide. So we first wanted to start with India. And India itself is a massive market from an export opportunity because our export goals laid out by Director General of Foreign Trade is $3 trillion by 2030. We're inching close to $1 trillion now, despite all this tariff noise that we hear. China, USA, rest of the world, India, etc. There is talk of some free trade agreements, etc. with the United States shortly. Hopefully that comes through soon. But let me give an example of 2-3 personas, and that'll sort of help you understand the impact of the problems that we are, and the solutions that we try to create for those in a meaningful way. Take the example of, first of all, a very large, let's say, chemical exporter that deals with extensive documentation, or apparel exporter. Let's take a simpler example. Apparel, massive billion-dollar company in India, XYZ, and they want to, let us say, deal with one of their divisions. They're global. They have a footprint worldwide, and they are exporting apparels out of India. India is one of the largest world's apparel exporters anyway. And the top 4-5 categories generally that we deal with are apparels, food, electronics, consumer electronics, engineering goods, manufacturing and engineering goods, pharmaceuticals, and chemicals. And then, of course, there are more, but we'll get to it, like defense, etc. It's a little trickier because of SCOMET regulations, etc. Those are physical export controls, and we need to have more documentation aspects, nuances covered there. Compliance regulatory is always generally the elephant in the room problem, if you will. Now, coming back to this, let's say this large apparel exporter has this team. It's not like they don't have a team. They have an export processing team there. But the team is incredibly, I wouldn't say inefficient, but then they have a lot of gaps in the process simply because, let's say, like I said, with that nuance, buyers don't trust sellers, sellers don't trust buyers. So the buyer in this case is the importer sitting in XYZ country, say United States, exporter sitting here in India. Even a single data field change or a flaw or a mismatch, even if on a key document, can entail that entire consignment, even if it leaves your port here from India, despite all the checks and balances at the IceGate portal, which is our customs export portal, and at the customs, covered by all CIF, carriage insurance freight, or free on board, some of the most popular common Incoterms, which put basically the liability of the consignment till it reaches on the shoulders of the importer. Assuming all of these check boxes are filled, there is no guarantee that at port of entry, it can get cleared. I'll give an example. Less than a month ago, we had a huge consignment, multi-crore, that got export of mangoes, that got export in food in this category's case. And it reached Los Angeles due to some documentation glitch. The United States did not allow the document to enter the shores, and they destroyed the entire consignment of mangoes that came from this particular exporter here in India because of some documentation mismatch. You see the impact? A documentation glitch can result in an entire consignment being null and void. Didn't even reach the stores that it was intended to be sold at, the retail outlets. I'll come back to the apparel example. This large exporter has this team. They sit and process all these documents. Now, to prevent the mango type example, why I gave you that example is to sort of put it into context of what data fields, what are the if you will, the what they call as critical to quality parameters need to be like absolutely sacrosanct, and without which the documentation can get rejected even at export level itself with the bank or with the various custom holds agents, etc. These are the people that take care of your documentation processing all the way through to customs from the exporter. And there are so many nuances. So AI can come in and create some really massive tangible impact there, because you can have very strong AI checks and balances. One of our flagship products called TradeVeda solves that problem, and then basically helps not only point out inaccuracies to a very high level, almost 95 to 100%, 99% accuracy using AI. And we also basically point out insights which leverage all of the latest portals that are out there, both globally and within India, for, let's say, the myriad production promotion councils for various categories, in this case apparel, or Director General of Foreign Trade, which is a very treasure trove of information for exporters and traders, and then being able to succinctly summarize it in a meaningful human readable form for that exporter. We also have another extension of TradeVeda as Patram AI, which also allows the user to talk to their, if you will, the documentation and that category and that particular consignment details, to be able to pull the latest and greatest info, most accurate info, so that they're never blindsided by some changing regulation. Suddenly XYZ country said this item isn't allowed to be whatever, right, exported to our country and so on. Changing regulations have become very common now in this tariff chaos worldwide. So we solve for those, and this we truly believe is a great step. This is AI agents that are going at a depth play, solving for it in a verticalized manner. But we are also seeing a lot of asks from our large enterprise customers for agentic AI, which connects the dots, take an instruction, run with it, connects these agents, so that everything runs pretty much autonomously within that enterprise, using AI for the entire workflow automation, which is sort of aligning to our mission. Hope this helps.
So that Mango destruction of Mango problem, right? This happened in the US, and we thought like, okay, it happened because you guys didn't want to take Indian product or something like that, but you pretty much peeled the onion, so to speak, and said, okay, this is because of the mismatch in documentation, and the impact of that is destruction of 500 crores or a large amount of mangoes being destroyed, which is like a lot of it's a business loss to somebody, right? So you're solving that problem. So make sure that documentation is up to mark before it leaves the port.
I can add a point there, right? So the required document in this Mango specific case was a document called PPQ 203 forms, which were issued by the USDA officers. And the mangoes were processed at a facility co-managed by both Indian and US authorities. And what we learned as a result of this, what went wrong, when we did the RCA root cause analysis, US Customs rejected the shipment citing documentation issues, and they were destroyed in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Atlanta. And the lessons were, we need to reduce these errors in export processes. It can cost time, money, credibility, and we have to modernize our export systems, whether it is provenance checking, blockchain for tracking, custom updates, document checks, which are automated. This is really aligning to what we set out to achieve. So it's sort of validation, if you will, in a very odd form, but I can give you more examples in, let's say, the recent NVIDIA DeepSeek case with shipments going over to free trade zone like Singapore, and then NVIDIA GPUs landing up somehow in, there were some cases with some companies there in Singapore, and the China factor as well for DeepSeek, etc. So there are so many that we see in the news. These are all news reports that is publicly accessible to all of us. But then that's the importance of getting documentation right, workflow processes automated, so that human error and the human involvement is minimized. So as to have systems speak to each other, and then you have maybe human feedback. You can still give AI as a co-pilot. I'm not saying you should completely do away with all the humans. Make AI as a co-pilot to begin with, but make sure that human annotation and it's there to assist the humans like any other agent.
You're already a CEO of Liquidmind.ai, right? Now, Skillsagent AI is completely different. One is trade documentation, workflow automation, making sure all the paperwork is correct before it leaves the port and all that, right? That's one side of the equation. Why Skillsagent? Why you started that?
Thank you. That's a great question. When I have to rewind the clock about a year and a half ago, when I first came up with this idea of, the world was changing dramatically from underneath, and it was shifting underneath our feet ever since GPT, the 3x versions, 3.5, etc. launched, and ChatGPT came to 4. I was still in my stint with Matchmove and with the Singapore company, and working closely with Stripe on the acceptance side, etc. as a partner there. One common thing that I heard from my sales folks back then was how is it that we can actually make meaningful use of this GPT medium to be able to solve for information access needs and democratized, if you will, information access and put it in the hands of all of the users. We were far from the world that we are in today, which is all about tools and automation and AI agents and agentic AI, and the huge advancement week on week. We're literally seeing like massive jumps in productivity improvements and tools and technologies that are available through AI. But through that journey, it became all too clear to me that there are various cohorts of users that are, whether it's sales, marketing, HR professionals, technology professionals, leadership, etc. Just yesterday, we concluded a lightning session for Skill Agents, which was a second iteration in a fortnight. And I can tell you that we do it as a very hands-on capability. And we figured that the time it takes in those days, whether I was working, as a CXO in these various companies, the time that it would take to, for example, work through with my engineering teams, product teams, align the business teams, get their requirements for, say, simple use cases like, say, dashboard creation or data access from myriad data sources to sort of manifest them in a common dashboard, which is highly actionable and insightful as opposed to just dump info, like is the norm, not solving anyone's problem. And hence, most dashboards generally don't even get used. If you want to make it sticky and make it actionable, you have to make it purpose-driven. You have to make it intuitive in a way that the user will come and start using it. That simple use case of creating, let's say, CXO dashboards, marketing dashboards, tracking CRM funnels for hunting, farming teams or customer service teams or engineering product teams or whoever, used to, on an average, take many months to even come to alignment, and then prioritization, and many more months to build. So you can imagine the multi-month exercise, or perhaps sometimes in the worst cases, years together, because the damn thing keeps getting deprioritized repeatedly. Just one example. And we were able to build dashboards through some of the latest and greatest LLMs and AI tools available to us at our fingertips in a little over 15 minutes. It was highly actionable, highly purpose-driven. We generated synthetic data that mirrored a CRM system and created insights, and it was mind-blowing. I don't know if I could show that demo, but I can speak for it, and it's just pretty mind-blowing. And this is one example. I'll give you other examples. Let's say you take HR professionals. Typically, what is the work of a HR hiring manager and a HR corresponding counterpart that works on that job rec, however senior it is or however junior it is? On an average, the use cases go dig for the right data sources or the whether it's referral network or whether it's social media or for the junior posts, etc. Most times it goes by word of mouth as well. But these days, LinkedIn has also become a great tool to also validate. It's not just also pull, it also validate. Now, we built an entire lead gen sourcing funnel for matching the JD with the job description with the required candidate profile, being able to pull it automatically with API calls through LinkedIn, making sure that it shows up in our databases through AI technologies we built, all within a matter of, let's say, a few minutes or hours at max, and being able to manifest that through LLMs to score how many are relevant, how many are not relevant for the JD against the JD. Put that score and the profile back into a database, make sure that gets shortlisted and pushed to the hiring manager with required updates, and make sure that the hiring manager is able to then skim and scan, and then sort of act as that co-pilot for them in a very meaningful, actionable way. It's almost, there are entire companies that are being built on this one premise. It's just one small product demo we showed in one of our Skill Agents demos. That's the second example. Third one is that sales marketing use case I just told you about. Opportunities converted to leads, figuring out for, say, a large enterprise, looking up how many of those you can match with, say, the very important top officers in that enterprise or your target cohort that you're seeking, using tools that are available out there in the market like Apollo.io, etc. Being able to have API interaction through your AI, succinctly summarize the descriptions through your AI capabilities and tools, being able to throw a front-end edit, which is a website creation, which probably in the past days would take months together in a few minutes. You can use tools like Lovable, etc. Code generation can be done through tools like Cursor. We have our own internal code generation tool we are building now. You can basically then manifest into these meaningful dashboards I spoke to you about through the various dashboard capabilities, and then manifest it. So what I mean is, why am I giving you these examples is, these are real life use cases where AI is going to permeate, and mark my words, every single industry in our world is going to get disrupted. Those that are AI, that is why they say, and I say this too, it is not, AI is not the future of technology. It's the technology of today that will change our future. That's how I look at it. And that was why Skill Agents was born. My co-founder, Mr. Rajesh Pentakota, he's from IIM Ahmedabad and has worked at very leading American companies like Unboxed, Walmart. He's worked with me in Flipkart and Capillary Technologies, a cardless loyalty startup, which has also got a huge presence now there in the United States, acquiring a lot of companies in the last few years there. Basically, he's got about 15, 16 years in the industry. He's very hands-on. we build these capabilities and demonstrate these through our lightning and our training sessions. And we believe the time is right because we want to not just equip ourselves with the latest technologies and trends in AI, but also make sure that we share that knowledge in a very meaningful, purpose-driven manner, even if it means we make a company for profit for it. I think that's been our overarching goal, to democratize information in AI because it's very scattered. What you see on Twitter, LinkedIn, and rather X and LinkedIn is very, very, very surface level. It's the tip of the iceberg. We're trying to go deeper, and we're trying to do it in a very humane way. Hope this
Yeah.
helps.
So something like giving back to your community, right? Like your business community or your.
It is for profit, not that lightning sessions are, of course, free. We do have a 1.5 to 2 month program, depending on the various cohorts for, say, AI for product managers, AI for training for upskilling courses for sales marketing, AI upskilling courses that we have a pedagogy on hand where we're going to train them up and make sure that they're industry ready with AI. And I see this pattern repeat. Whoever I speak to says we need help. And that's really how Skill Agents was born.
So I'm going to change topic a little bit. And I watched your video on TEDx. What made you go into TEDx? What were you trying to achieve? What was the message for the community?
Thank you. I've given 2 TEDx talks so far. One is yet to go live on the YouTube channel. They take about 3 months for vetting it. But my first TEDx was in my alma mater in UVC in 2023, February, which went live on YouTube somewhere around July of 23. It went viral. So it has about 160,000 odd views. My theme was very simple. I wanted to basically build products and platforms for the greater good. And it's a very loaded topic and a statement, but to sort of demystify it, you want to be able to make sure that any product that we use, touch and feel, Raj, can actually have both a good and a not so good outcome, depending on how you use it. You can, and most systems and products that we generally use in our day-to-day lives as well, what we strive for is obviously the greater good. Will it benefit humanity? Will it benefit the society? Will it benefit XYZ cohort of users, whoever they are, B2C, B2B, B2B2B, B2B2C, doesn't matter. The B is business, C is consumer. So what I was very, very motivated and passionate about was to deliver my message to the world, not just that audience cohort there, was about taking specific pointers to say, how can you actually build products and platforms that have, let's say, you take AI. I'll give an example, although I didn't touch upon AI in my TEDx, but it's equally relevant. Some of the examples I gave are from real world platforms and how deliberate falsehood should be avoided in social platforms, as an example. Truth seeking has become a very big thing now, right? So how do you know something is true? Do you believe editorial content? There are many in the world that will say yes. There's a percentage of people in the world, me included, who say you probably defer to other social platforms where both sides of the argument are expressed and then you make your own decision. That's another view. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's a view. And then there are those that sort of also say editorial with a mix of that could also be a good approach. And you have all of these flavors. Now, deliberate falsehoods are incredibly dangerous. There are entire wars that can be instigated. There are entire bad malpractices, the bad aspects to the society that can be instigated just by social amplification of a wrong message. That's how dangerous it is. And on the other hand, there can be incredible goods that come out. That was the theme of my talk, which is how do you deliver greater good? I wasn't really focusing on the wrongs. That is a small percentage of our society. But it's important to call it out and say how one can mitigate risks. But what's important is also to talk about what you can do to create the guardrails, but also ensure you operate within the guardrails and operate within to help the society at large. And I spoke about some of those to say how I, in my own journey, have managed to look at from a very ringside view of building startups almost all through my 26 years in the industry, all of which have been in products, right from my very first company. In building, whether it's B2C or B2B products or B2B2B products, in how they have always strived to ensure that these products aren't misused. How are we sort of building those guardrails? How are we making, like in payments, how do you ensure that you're offering a payment system which is going to be used by a merchant to collect payments? I'll give you that example, right? Small or large, doesn't matter. It could be a massive billion-dollar merchant. It could be a small SMB, small and medium enterprise. Problem statement is the same. How does that customer trust that merchant and know that that money is not going for any other purpose, but it is intended to sort of transact and get that product or service in return from that merchant in that timely manner, right? So that's a trust thing. And then you have those trust badges, you have that brand loyalty that you build over time, and you build the capabilities and the messaging. And you also obviously do your amplification and make sure systems from an information technology standpoint are there to support that kind of trust. That's for the greater good. I've seen enough cases, even in the payments industry, across my experiences, not just one or two companies, where I've seen such things being misused. Somebody will register saying category X that they sell in, but they'll actually start doing some wrong, dealing with very wrong categories, and which are not for the greater good, and it results in chaos. And then that merchant, if some XYZ is a payment provider, I'll anonymize it. Then they reserve the right to actually ban that merchant for transacting and dealing with. This is one example. There are umpteen such examples. I'll give you the example of iDrive, where we were working for storing user customer data from North American and European customers. Today, iDrive as of date has 4.5 million customers there in North America and Europe. I'm not current on what they built today, but I can tell you that the products I built there are still long lasting. They're still there. And in some new form, I'm sure it's been almost 15 years since I left that company. What I can tell you is that the value in of the trust badge, people are trusting you with your data, and they're trusting. Look, backing up may be very easy. Syncing data into some online cloud platform may be very easy, whether it's anything. You take any cloud service out there. Take Google's cloud service, you take Microsoft's, you take Amazon's, you take iDrive's, you take whoever, Box, whoever, enterprise customer, whoever. The value lies when you want to retrieve it, when shit hits the fan, and when you realize that you want the data back in one piece, and you want the latest version of it, and knowing that your life's not in the line, you want the data safe and secure. That's why you backed up in the first place. That's, again, greater good. So imagine we were at that problem, solving for it, looking for all the wrong corner cases, making sure we weed them out and keep the messaging clean and clear is very important. Another example, I know we're running low on that question on time, but I'll probably just wrap it up with one more question, which is for that question is, let's say in the world of another North American company I was working for called iPass. They were, in some sense, think of them as Uber for Wi-Fi for the enterprise traveler. They give you these connection managers that get you connected to any hotel Wi-Fi or airport Wi-Fi. And basically, you obviate the need to latch on to expensive mobile roaming bills. So you don't ratchet up those heavy tens of thousands of US dollars when you roam countries. And this is very applicable for business travelers. Now imagine iPass offers you that Wi-Fi service across a hotspot and a footprint of many millions of hotspots worldwide. In those days, I'm talking 12, 13 years ago when I was with that company. And we were offering connection. You've heard of Boingo, so there's similar to that, Go and Flight, etc., which is offered across so many transatlantic and trans-Pacific flights now. We partnered with all of those players as well. What I mean is, trust is a big deal even there. Free Wi-Fi is not always 100% safe, secure. So iPass used to offer, by partnering with enterprises and telecom carriers, to be able to offer you that safe landing zone in your Wi-Fi. When you land, use that connection manager as an enterprise traveler and get connected, whether it's your smartphone, tablet, desktop, laptop, whatever. Mostly laptops, right? So that trust badge is again super critical. That's again for the greater good. So, and of course, in the world of AI, ethics, trolley problem, we have all heard of it, right? How do you prevent biases, discrimination? How do you ensure machines? Everybody is super worried about this, right? Machines becoming, if they surpass human intelligence, then what happens? What are the outcomes? What is artificial general intelligence going to look like? No one knows. People are guessing. We're speculating. What's that world of singularity that Masa-san from SoftBank is speaking about? So these are all things that we need to give consideration to, and hence the theme of that talk, which is for the greater good.
One last question I have. I know both Liquidmind and Skillsagent, your bootstrap, right? Those who are viewing this podcast, listening to this podcast, please give them elevator pitch, so to speak, right? And see how they want to get involved, whether they're a customer or your partners, business partners, whatever. And then your website, so people can reach out to you, and if they have a similar problem and they're trying to solve this problem, they can reach out to you for demo and stuff. With that, I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. Liquidmind's problem statement, like I said earlier, is we automate workflows for international trade using AI. We are currently focused on the large enterprise customer segment, which we believe is a massive opportunity. We're running a whole bunch of pilots and POCs with very large chemical, apparel, billion-dollar multinationals for their export divisions, starting India first and perhaps also expanding the footprint. We're open to exploring opportunities in Middle East, United States, and Southeast Asian geography, especially Singapore, and other geographies as we go along. The website is https://liquidmind, liquidmind.ai, liquidmind.ai. And we will look to also engage very closely with the very important top officers of these corporations to be able to understand pain points that we think we can get to the roots in their export and import processes, see how we can technologically build capabilities through AI, whether it is by verticalized AI agents, taking an instruction, going depth, running with it, solving a pain point for them really well, like the examples I highlighted, or connecting entire disparate systems within their enterprise, solving it through an agentic AI approach. That's Liquidmind. Coming to Skill Agents is the URL of the company is Skill, SKILL, Agents, AGENTS.ai, and Skillagents.ai. And we are the mission is very clear. We want to make sure that we make information, especially around AI and the latest trends and technologies, in a very hands-on, meaningful way, purposeful and humane for cohorts ranging all the way from mid-market professionals all the way to the entry-level students, using AI technologies, tools, what have you. And it's going to be hands-on, purpose-driven. It's going to be very, very pragmatic and practical and experiential in its nature and design. That's how we have structured the whole program and the course and what comes with it. It is tailor-made for the India audience, as also available for the US audience. We are live. We will start training sessions as early as early July 2025. And we will conduct it in cohorts of about 20 or lesser members so that we can give hands-on personalized attention. These are not recorded sessions. They are intended to be live sessions. So we engage hands-on, give them those assignments, have them work on it in front of us, go back, play around, come back, and so on. So it's very, very, if you will, engaging and in-depth. And that's the personalization angle. So that's Skill Agents, and we are going to cover all of the latest and greatest, not just the technologies that are evolving in the fast-changing AI landscape, things like model context protocol, or things like large language models, a new one that gets dropped every time and again, or for that matter, the agent-to-agent communication capabilities, or AI agents and how they're applicable to XYZ industry. It is pretty much going to cover the gamut of tools, technologies, but it's going to take a customer view, work backwards, solve a job to be done, show how that job can be solved, how was it in the old world, how much productivity and customer improvement can be experienced in the new world, and we can bring out that entire mapping. And that's what we've been doing. That's our goal.
Thank you so much, Naveen. I think we ran out of time, but there was a lot of insight from you about not just about your products, but also educating others and contributing to humanity in general, right? And then there's the other spiritual aspect we couldn't get to talk to, but I really appreciate your time, your insights into these business world problems that you're trying to solve. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, you're right. The spiritual aspect is a topic for another day. And I think it's a wonderful topic, something we've been very passionate about. I have been personally very passionate about. The last line on that, though, we will probably in a future iteration get to discuss on that in depth. And it's again a very, very real world problem, something that is pretty close to my heart on a non-profit basis, if you will. And we made some incredible strides in that GPT-based approach towards spiritualism and how we in our philosophy are looking at it, and how I'm playing my 2 cents in adding value there, along with the community. Actually, it's a community exercise. It's not an individual exercise. I have to give that caveat. But it's incredibly powerful. It's like we have the tailwinds. Hopefully, we get to speak about it very shortly as well. Thank you so much for having me, Raj. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Liquidmind and Skill Agents AI. Thank you.
Thank you.